Oh, do we have a action-packed show for you today? We got Zach Brown of McLaren making predictions, and then some some logistical issues in from trying to get from Australia to China for uh for some F1 teams. I think it's just F1 team. If I'm not mistaken. Uh, nope, it's teams. It's teams. Okay, and we got the preview for the second Chinese Grand Prix since its return to the calendar 1 year ago. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss any of the fun, the NASCAR, the F1, the college football, the NFL, the gaming. We we got it all. We got it all right here. So, what So, what has Zach Brown spouted off about this time? My fellow American, Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren, he has made the prediction that Max Verstappen is going to be out at Red Bull at the end of this season. And he says, Zach Brown says, yeah, a lot of people are gonna say he's gonna go to Aston Martin. But what they're going to do is they are going to go he's going to go to Mercedes is his prediction. Toto Wolff likes Max Verstappen. They have a solid foundation. The car's headed in the right direction. All of that is true. One problem. They don't have a seat. You're not going to move off George. You sure as heck aren't going to move off Kimmy to bring in Max, who he's teetering on the fence of racing for another 5 years, and that's stretching it. He's going to be one of those that retires early. He's not going to be. He's not going to have this like incredible 20-year run. He's not. He's not going to stick around as long as Hamilton. He's not going to stick around. He's definitely not going to stick around as long as Fernando Alonso. I mean, I I believe we're in the final. I do believe we're in the final handful of years of Max Verstappen's career before he calls it quits on F1. That I do believe. Um, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if it was at the end of this year. Depending on where the car's going, because he like, how do I put this? Because I don't want to say he doesn't care about F1, but it's not something that he feels obligated to do forever and ever and ever. If that makes sense. He wants to be with his family. He's having a kid uh here in the next few months. Uh he loves iRacing. He wants to do other stuff. And with an F1 schedule going all around the world, he's not going to have the time to do all that stuff. So, I do think the days are numbered with the relationship between Max and Red Bull, at least as a driver full time. I I don't see him if he decides to leave Red Bull but stay in F1. I don't see him going to Mercedes. Mercedes doesn't have a seat for him. Plus, you also have, and I do think Aston Martin has some interesting pieces. Adrian Newey, especially. I believe the team principal there is Mike Carrack. Yeah, gotta say that one slow. Gotta say that one very slow. And it's hard to tell how good Aston Martin really is because all they have is Fernando Alonso. And are you really going to move off Fernando Alonso to make room for Max Verstappen so that Lance Stroll can keep his ride because Daddy runs the team? No, you're going to move Lance Stroll, especially Fernando Alonso wants to keep doing it, and he's doing it at the level that he's been doing it. And I have heard that Lance Stroll is thinking about hanging it up soon as well. And now I do believe Aston Martin is far more likely. I think Zach is just throwing a firecracker in a barrel essentially and seeing what happens. He just got bored and was like, you know what? I think this is gonna happen. Because that's kind of how I feel Zach is. He just gets bored and wants to mess with the media and create a firestorm for somebody else. Which that's a bit of the game within the game, so to speak. But yeah, I if Max does leave Red Bull, it's either going to be it's more than likely, and I would put it at 80% likely. If he's leaving Red Bull, he's leaving the sport. Period. I don't see him going anywhere else. Now, moving on, F1 teams suffer freight delays for the Chinese Grand Prix. Multiple. This is a story written by. This is the story written on motorsport.com by Ronald Vording. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Multiple F1 teams had freight delays as McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Aston Martin could only build their cars for the Chinese Grand Prix from late Wednesday afternoon. So, for those who don't quite know the logistics of Formula One and kind of the back end, every single race weekend at the end, they have to deconstruct the cars, pack them in crates, and take them up and let DHL take them, put them on the plane, and take them to the next race. And then when they get there, they unpack them and put the car back together. And so it is a time consuming thing, and especially in a sprint weekend like the Chinese Grand Prix, time is something you do not have. And I mean, you get one 1 hour practice session, and then it's sprint qualifying, then the sprint, then qualifying, then the race. So, um, so the article goes on. Several F1 teams have had their freight delayed from Australia to China, meaning the preparations have been held up for the Chinese Grand Prix. The FIA stated that the tire supplier Pirelli did not have its freight at the Shanghai International Circuit on time, although the tire manufacturer has received equipment in the pit lane on Wednesday. At least 4 F1 teams, McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, and Aston Martin, have suffered freight delays after 2 flights from Melbourne to Shanghai have been delayed at least 8 hours. So the teams did not receive their cargo until late Wednesday afternoon. These teams were only able to unpack their freight in the pit lane and build their cars from 4 p.m. local time onwards. Excuse me. But the FIA and the teams do not have any concerns about the cars getting ready for the first and only free practice session of the weekend. The governing body has allowed the teams to break the curfew if needed. Ordinarily, teams are given 5.5 hours to work on their cars on Wednesday, but that has been extended by a half an hour due to the late arrival of Pirelli's freight. The first practice session is not expected to be at risk of delays, but the teams will have to work overtime early in this season. And during the physically demanding doubleheader with Australia, or that yeah, that was the end of the sentence. I don't know why I was, but yeah. A team member told Motorsport.com there are no worries about free practice, but these days will be some late nights for our mechanics. The only free practice session of the weekend starts at 11:30 local time, which means the team still had a day and a half to prepare for the opening session. Now, it is so yeah, it looks like just an interesting story, but and it might be something to look at if Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, and Aston Martin are a little bit slow um in the in the first practice sprint and sprint qualifying. But I do believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I do believe there is a rule in F1 that because their teams are not directly responsible for uh taking the for transporting the cars, that's DHL, that all 10 teams have to wait until each and every car is at the track before they can start unpacking and preparing. So, a- and I do believe that's still a rule. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah. So it is going to be a interesting weekend. That is already a cluster. Now, now that all the fun stories are out of the way, let's look at the weather, shall we? So the expected weather is all weekend. The main thing is no rain. No rain. Now with sprint qualifying, about 10 to 20 mile an hour wind. Uh, so 10 to 20 mile an hour wind for the for qualifying, and 10 to 15 mile an hour wind for the race. So so it looks like it's going to be beautiful weather for racing, and we're going to get a more accurate gauge to see what kind of distance Red Bull needs to make up to get to the McLarens. It was very clear last weekend that uh that the McLarens were much faster. It's not relatively close, and it could be a very this could be a very major issue for Red Bull, especially this early in the season. And this race, starting with the sprint race, is quickly turned into a must-win for Max Verstappen. If McLaren ends up winning, there could it's going to get very dicey very quick, because I do believe Red Bull is they're kind of sitting on a powder keg, and just and it's been able to hold together by Max winning. But this powder keg is set to blow. And the end of last season wasn't great. Wasn't great. Uh in the beginning of this season, eh, it's not looking particularly good. Um Max is only second in the points because McLaren went off track. eh, In in those last set of corners in Australia, and Oscar got stuck in the grass. That is the sole reason why Max finished second instead of third. So all the pressure is on Max, all the pressure is on Red Bull, and Liam Lawson needs to produce. Last weekend it was a rough weekend. it was a rough weekend for Liam Lawson, no question. And he's got to produce here. We need to see something out of Liam Lawson. Some hope, a little bit of fire. We need to see something out of this kid. He's talented. He's very good. I don't doubt that. But this Red Bull timetable is much quicker than anywhere else. They expect you to perform, and they expect you to perform right now. Yuki finishing where he did last weekend, I believe it was he finished in the points. Excuse me. Um, Although I don't remember off the top of my head where exactly he finished, but it's a it is that pressure's building on Liam, because if Yuki starts getting consistent with that, then I I can't defend Red Bull on it. Yuki is he did not finish in the points. Not bad. I done thought he did. Well, he finished the race. That I know. Gosh, I really thought he finished I really thought he finished in the points. Okay, but the original point still stands. Yuki outperformed Liam Lawson. This cannot continue to be a trend. If this is a trend going into the summer break, don't be surprised if Christian Horner and Helmut Marko get together, acknowledge they made a mistake, and make the swap. Now, the other thing is he is also being compared next to Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli finished 4th last weekend. Nearly sat on the podium. That is something that Red Bull cannot be affording. That is, if things keep going the way that they are, Red Bull will be sitting 4th in the standings, in the constructors' standings, a distant 4th away from Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. And that falls on Christian Horner. That falls on him. You cannot have Max Verstappen and be finishing 4th in the point standings as a constructor. It's completely unacceptable. We know what Max is capable of, and you cannot be wasting him. All right, got that out of the way. And then one thing that was a story, I don't have it up here in front of me, so it might be a little rocky, but I do know Helmut Marko. He did say some things about Isaac Hadjar, essentially crying uh, after his warm up lap debacle, wrecking out of the race before they even get to the start of the race. And it was like, oh gosh, if I can pull it up here. Martin Brundle went after him. Let's see. Trying to find the exact. Oh, not that one. Um, Yeah, oh, that's not even in the like yeah. Helmet said something about how like can't have drivers crying, something along those lines. It was like it's pretty embarrassing to have him crying. And here and of course F1 being a lot having a lot more of a liberal fan base since it's a European sport essentially. And there's it there's gonna be more backlash on something like that. And to a degree, well, I don't agree with Helmet at all, but I understand where he's coming from. You have to remember, Helmut Marko comes from a different day and age, and he's probably not quite all there in the head. But and and so I mean, he's 81 years old. he he is old enough to say that he was alive during World War II. He is old enough for that. Yeah, he was 2 years old when World War II ended. So he I mean, he's just an old man saying weird stuff. Just saying stuff that would be acceptable in his day and age, and he just hasn't evolved. Now, his he gets applauded for his ability to find great drivers, and he does do a great job at finding drivers. I mean, most of the field is from the Red Bull Academy. Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, uh, um, got Liam, Yuki, Max, obviously. He's responsible for Seb, DC. I mean, the list goes on. Now, with Isaac Hadjar, I completely understand why he's in tears. Um, and it's not so much of like, and it's not so much of like it sucks emotionally because it does. And and if he's anything like I would be, I would be in tears from sheer embarrassment. I mean, and I don't blame Isaac at all. I would. That's that's why I'd be in tears. I'd be absolutely embarrassed. I don't want to talk to anybody after having something like that happen. It's completely understandable. And I'd be the same way. I'd be the same way without a doubt. Um, but yeah, I mean it's an unfortunate start for Isaac. Um, it's tough conditions. First time in an F1 car. First time in those type of conditions, and you're gonna get embarrassed every once in a while, especially in that situation. It's going to happen. It's unfortunate that it happened in, in that fashion, but you just gotta flush it, move on. Tomorrow's a new day. This weekend's a new weekend. Flush it, move on. Isaac, show what you got. All right, that is that. Um, I don't think I have too much more to add on the F1 weekend. Other than my predictions, I'm going to say I'm gonna say uh I can't go against Lando. I can't go against Lando here. Um I think it's gonna end up being Lando, Oscar, and I'm gonna say Charles Leclerc rounding out the podium. I can see Max being fourth, and then we'll say Lewis Hamilton rounding out the top five. Um Ferrari very good with the long straights. Always historically powerful engine. But I don't think they can touch McLaren right now. I don't think anybody can touch McLaren right now. They are that good. And so that is uh that is my weekend prediction. And as far as the sprint qualifying or the sprint race, screw it. Let's go Oscar Piastri. McLaren, they get max points. They just flip the drivers. We'll go that route. So, all right. That is now all that I have for the Chinese Grand Prix uh weekend. So, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next one.